Hi everybody, Peter here, Thailand bound. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Going to make something a little bit different for you today. I had a younger guy contact me yesterday. I won't mention any names. He knows who he is. He's obviously subscribed to me, so when he sees this, he'll know that I'm talking about him. He wrote to me yesterday and he said he wanted to send me an email. How could he get my email address? I told him how to do that. The best way, I mean, if there's anybody out there and they want to contact me because they want to suggest a video, you can actually contact me. The best way to do that is if you leave your email address in the comments. Nobody else will see it. The reason for that is because I moderate all of my comments. So in other words, as the comments come in, I filter them. The real bad ones, I'll delete them. I won't approve them. And the reason for that is not because I want totally 100% positive feedback. I don't mind a little bit of negative feedback if it's got a message in it that's meaningful, not just some idiot's written something stupid. So what you can do is, if you want to contact me, you can actually leave a message and say, look, here's my email address. Can you give me my email address, and I'll send you it. And then once I've sent you my email address, I'll delete that comment. So although you've put it up on the comments, you don't need to worry about the whole world seeing it, because it's only me who'll see it. And if you say at the end of that message you want me to delete it, I will do. So what he actually wrote to me about, when I actually got the email back from him, he's going to Hua Hin. He's only about 27 or 28. I can't remember exactly how old he said, but he was quite concerned. He'd heard stories that because he's young, the police will target him and arrest him for nothing and plant drugs on him and bribe him and try and extract money from him. I mean, I've written back to him and I've said, look, as long as you don't do anything stupid, that isn't going to happen. But what I thought I'd do today is, I'm always making videos saying 20 things you shouldn't do in Thailand, and there's lots of videos on YouTube that'll 10 things you shouldn't do, 5 things you shouldn't do. It's always advice on things you shouldn't do in Thailand. Don't make people lose face, don't touch people on the head, lots and lots of them. And I've made those sort of videos myself. There's nothing wrong with them. I thought for a change, I'd let you know of what can happen, the consequences, if you do something really stupid. I was trying to think of a word that would describe a guy who is that way inclined. That we've got our own words in the UK. We'd call him a tosser. In America, you'd call him a jerk. And I was trying to think of a word that I could call the guy that everybody would understand. And the best word I could come up with, or 2 words, is the guy's a dick. I think if I say that, just about everybody would understand what sort of a person I'm trying to describe. I've got a few stories, 2 or 3 short stories. We'll save the best one. I've only ever seen one serious. A guy came really unstuck, and it will surprise you when I tell you the story. It's going to be the last one. The first couple are very small things, but I'll tell you them anyway. Before I get into those stories, I just wanted to say I'm getting quite a few requests from people who like these stories. The kind of love stories between foreign men and Thai bar girls that kind of go wrong, and I think I've got a half a dozen of them up there. There's only so many stories I can tell you. I've still got a few left that I do intend to put out there later on. But what I was going to say to you guys, if you've got an experience where you had a proper relationship with a Thai girl, she moved in within, and you've seen her as your girlfriend, and there was a kind of something a little bit unusual happened, she stole all your money, or I don't know, a husband came around and beat you up, or anything like that, let me know about it. Write it out in an email. I'll change your name, I'll change her name, and I'll put it out as a video, because we all want to hear these stories. And if it's I don't want any bullshit, guys. All the stories that I tell, normally I'll only tell stories that I've seen firsthand, because I know they're real, and I want people to hear stories that are genuine. I don't want to put bullshit out there. So I'm not looking for Charles Dickens' best novel. If you've got a genuine story and it's not bullshit, it really happened to you, and you think others will be interested in it, send me an email. Do what I said earlier to get my email address. I'll have a look at it, and if it looks interesting, I'll change your name, and I'll change her name, and I'll put it out as a video, because other guys will find it interesting. As I say, there are people out there who do like those kind of stories. So that said and done, we've got all that out of the way now. Let me tell you about these things where people have come unstuck. So we'll start with a small one first. I was once in Rainbow, is it Rainbow 3 or Rainbow 4? As you go into the plaza, right to the end, the one in the corner, it's full of Japanese these days. They kind of took over that bar, but I was in there anyway. There was a guy came in, I don't know where he was from, but he was a West Indian guy. I was sat at the back with a friend. We were having a drink and just looking at the stage. This guy came in, he had a couple of drinks. He was absolutely, he was really drunk. He went up to the side of the stage and he started making fun of the girls. He was kind of saying, oh, you've got big backside and you're this and you're that. And he thought it was really funny. The girls didn't do anything when he was doing that. But what did happen, as he was walking out, one of the girls ran up behind him and just whacked him so hard on the back of her head with a Heineken bottle that it smashed and she disappeared. And that's what they'll do. They won't let you get away with it. You might think at the time you're getting away with it, but they'll get their revenge and they'll have you. So that was one of the smaller things. And thinking about it, I have seen a few beer bottles get broken on a few heads over the years. That's one that stands out because it was quite shocking actually, because we were sat there and the girl just came out of nowhere and we just happened to be looking at the guy walking out as she cracked him on the back with the I say Heineken bottle, beer bottle, could have been a Chang, I don't know. So that was one. There's three I'm going to tell you today. That's one of the minor ones. We'll ramp it up a gear now, and this one was quite serious. This was something that happened to a guy because he made a bad decision. It wasn't really his fault. He just made a bad decision, a bad choice, and he really come unstuck. So what happened to this guy? He was a tourist. He went out. He was here for a couple of weeks. He went to Nana Plaza. He had a good night there. And I'm talking late 90s. There used to be a disco in the Nana Hotel. The Nana Hotel's opposite Nana Plaza. And as you walked in to the Nana Hotel, so you walk through the doors, the reception desk was on your right, toilets on your left. You walk all the way through to the end. I can't remember what it's called. A guy called Rick used to run it, but that stayed open near enough all night till at least sort of 5, 6 in the morning. And what had happened, you'd come out of Nana Plaza. I think the bars in those days closed at sort of 4. A lot of people tended to head over there about sort of 2:33. A lot of the freelancers headed over there as well. It was quite a good place actually. It closed down. It's not there anymore. So back to our story. So this guy, he was a tourist. He came out of the plaza, and as he was coming out, a Thai man, sort of, over here, he said, "Do you want some cocaine? I've got some cocaine." And the guy was on holiday. He'd had a few drinks. He wasn't thinking straight. He thought, yeah, why not? So he bought a little bit of cocaine, a little bit, stuffed it in his pocket, and he thought, I'll have that later, either in the disco or at home. I don't know what his intentions were, but he bought this little bit of cocaine, put it in his pocket. He went over to the disco. Upon entering the disco, he was searched by the police. Coincidentally, they found the cocaine and he was arrested. Now, just to let you know what actually happened there, they were all working as a team. I don't know who they were. Obviously, there was some kind of police. He came out, so they had mobile phones with them. They sold this guy. They knew where he was going. They could see him. They sold him this bit of cocaine. They'd called their friends who were on the door at the disco, searched him. They knew he was going to have it on him. And it's all an excuse just to extract money. It's not something that's normal these days. I'm going back 20 years. It's not, if you get stopped on a motorbike for being, and you've had a drink, then if you don't want to go to jail, then yeah, you will have to put your hand in your pocket. But I don't know how bad things are now compared to back. It was a bit like the Wild West back then. But the conclusion to that story is what happened. He was taken into custody. Now, obviously, drugs, even if you have a small package of drugs, it's real serious in Thailand. It's serious everywhere, but in Thailand, it's really, you just don't go near drugs, guys. If you take drugs in your own country, just do not go near drugs in Thailand. You're really asking for it. So what happened, this guy, they arrested him, they found the drugs, they knew they had a payday coming. He couldn't get out of it. They wanted 400,000 baht. Just to give you an example how much 400,000 baht is at today's rate, it's around £10,000, which I believe is about 12,000 US dollars. Now, luckily for him, he did know somebody, another Western guy who was actually living in Bangkok at the time and who was married to a Thai. He called him, he came down with his Thai wife, a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating, a lot of pleading. And in the end, they let him go for 200,000 baht. So he had to pay the equivalent to £5,000, 6,000 baht. As you can imagine, it wiped out his holiday budget. He owed his friend money. He had to borrow money. And, it was a bad decision. And he paid dearly for it, absolutely dearly. So, again, guys, if you're going to Thailand, just stay away from them drugs. It's not worth it. Really, and to get back to the young guy who wrote to me, who spurred me on to make this video, nothing's going to happen to you. If you're sensible, I've said it in many, many videos before, if you leave your sensible head at home and you go to Thailand with your silly head on, you make silly decisions, you can come unstuck. But generally, it is a friendly country. If you do silly things, then yeah, like anywhere else in the world, you'll get taken advantage of. But you're not particularly, people aren't out to... you're not going to get arrested for nothing. Basically, if you're in Hua Hin and you ride your motorcycle without a helmet on, you'll get stopped and expect to pay a few thousand baht to go away again. But then that's self-inflicted pain, isn't it? Because I did mention in my email that you have to wear a helmet. And it's just an excuse for them to make money. So don't give them an excuse. That's the end of that one anyway. Right, so let's get on to the worst thing I've ever seen in Thailand. Now, I'm going back to about 1995. I witnessed this. It sounds far-fetched, but I witnessed this with a friend. And the guy who wrote to me yesterday, who I've been speaking about, I'd not forgotten about it, but I'd never really sort of given it much thought because it was a long time ago. It was 25 years ago. This is an absolute true story. I'd only been in Thailand for about 2 years. In those days, when you walked in some of the smaller bars, it's not like now where they've spent millions of baht on sound and lighting systems. They're almost like sophisticated nightclubs. There's, lots and lots of money gone into them. In them days, a lot of the clubs you'd walk in, it took you 10 seconds before you could see anything. There was a little bit of an odor, let's be polite, as you walked in, and you'd have Christmas tree lights were strung around the bar. That was about as much as you could hope for in some of the smaller bars. And they're the sort of places we'd sort of hang out either earlier in the night or we'd want to finish one after coming out of Pat Pong, and we'd go to one of them types of bars. Now, as I say, guys, true story. This is something that happened, and I witnessed this myself. So the guy I'm talking about, the dick, as we mentioned in the beginning, let me tell you a little bit about him. He was from Glasgow, and in his city, Glasgow, he was a hard man. You wouldn't cross him. He was feared. Scars on his face, tattoos down his arms. I believe he was a loan shark. He was one of these guys who'd go around council estates to anybody who's not English, government housing. He'd offer people at the door £50, and you paid him back £75. If you missed it or you were late, that went up more and more and more. And he was one of those types of people. If you've seen him walk, if he was walking down the street with some of his goons, you'd cross the road to get away from him. He was a nasty piece of work. He was a local hard man. He was vicious. He'd been in and out of jail and approved school, Borstal, all them sort of places all his life. And this guy ended up in Bangkok. Probably just went on holiday like anybody else. So where he came unstuck is he tried to act like the hard man. He was a hard man, but he tried it on in Bangkok. And guys, it ain't gonna work. I don't care if you're a black belt in karate. I don't care if you're ex-military. I don't care if you've been with the CIA for 20 years or the FBI and you've been totally, your hands are, you've been trained to use your hands as weapons. I don't care who you are. You're not going to get away with it in Thailand. Why? I'll go back to this story in a second. Why? Because if you have a fight with one, it won't end up with one. You'll get 2, 3, 5, 10, and at the very least, you'll end up with a bloodied nose. You'll end up in hospital, and it'll just be an awful experience. So, as I've said in other videos, if you come unstuck with a Thai, just smile and walk away. Do not, and I repeat, do not try to get in a fight with a Thai. So back to our man. He's in Pat Pong, and like I say, hard man, hard Glaswegian man. In his own town, he was feared. So he goes into this smallish bar in it wasn't in Pat Pong 1, not the main run where the night bazaar is. It was one of the side streets. I think it's a gay soy now. It wasn't back then. Or I might be thinking of the other side. It doesn't matter. He went into one of the, just set the scene. He went into one of the smaller soys, not Pat Pong 1. It was one of the smaller bars, Christmas lights around the bar, run by a very nice Thai woman, and she had maybe 3 or 4 girls in there. It wasn't nothing. We'd go in there as regulars just for a drink. So he goes into this bar, and as I've said in other videos, you don't pay for each drink individually in Thailand. They'll put a wooden, kind of like a wooden pot on the table, and every time you have a drink, they'll bring a bill and they put it into that pot, and at the end of the night or whenever you want to leave, you just tell them check bin, and they'll total it up and they'll give you it. What happens, especially in the go-go bars sometimes, is they'll stick 1 or 2 extra bills in there if you're a bit drunk. So this bar I knew very well. I knew the Thai lady who ran it, and she wasn't like that. She didn't stick extra bills in people's bill pot. It was quite an honest bar. Because it was small, they relied on, they didn't have nothing much to offer. They relied on people going in there, regulars, and so they're not going to rip people off. But for whatever reason, this guy, the Glaswegian guy, he he was convinced that he was shortchanged. I don't know exactly if they put another bill in his pot or they didn't give him back a right change, but he pretty much imagined it. He made a mistake. We know this for sure. And he started flapping his hands around. He was getting louder and louder, and you don't do this, guys, not in Thailand. He got louder and louder, and to cut a long story short, it ended with him picking up a big glass ashtray, because you could smoke in the bars back then. It was a real heavy glass ashtray. He picked this ashtray up, he threw it at the optics, smashed about 3 bottles, whiskey, vodka, whatever it was. Okay, he went along the bar, like you see in the movies, all the glasses, he started kicking off, he was swearing and screaming. By this time, one of the girls had slipped out. The police are in Patpong, they're everywhere. She got a couple of police, they came in. He seen them coming in, he thought he was going to be arrested, he thought he was in Glasgow, he thought he could state his case and, you know, he'd pay a small fine and that'd be the end of it. That's not what happened. Let me tell you what happened. So, and as I say, I've witnessed this with my own eyes. It's a true story. So, the 2 police came in, asked him at first what happened. They took him outside, put one handcuff on one arm, and carted him outside by the other handcuff. So in other words, his hand was hanging with one loose handcuff and one round his wrist. They took him outside. They chained him. You know, they've got in Thailand, all the electricity power cables are above ground. They're not buried in the ground. And you'll see these concrete posts that support all these cables. So they handcuffed him to one of these concrete posts in Patpong. And then they went in to speak to the bar owner, got her story, found out what happened. The next thing that happened, the bar owner came out with a wicker basket chair. It was one of these tall bar chairs, smashed that over the guy's back in front of the police. Then went back into the bar, came out with a cane, hammered him with his cane. A couple of girls came out the bar, started kicking him, scratching him, spitting at him, all sorts. He was crying like a baby. He was begging. He was pleading. Now, eventually they let him go. He had to take all the money he had in his wallet and pay it to the bar owner. And I think he had something like 8,000-9,000 baht on him. And this was 20 years ago. And as far-fetched as this all seems, like I keep saying, guys, I witnessed this. So the moral to this story is, if you go to Thailand, it's as safe as houses. Unless you're very unlucky, nothing's going to happen to you. Everything that I've witnessed over the years has happened because it was self-inflicted. A guy was drunk, he said the wrong thing, he did the wrong thing, he bought some drugs, he took the mickey out of girls, he started a fight with a stall owner, you know, and they always come off the worst. This guy from Glasgow, I don't know what happened to him after that. Obviously they didn't kill him, but I would think he'd learned his lesson. I shouldn't have think he went to Thailand again. But that's it, guys. That's all I wanted to make this video about. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to ask me something specifically, then leave me a comment. And as they're moderated, then you can ask me to delete it, and I'll write to you, give you my email address. And I am looking for some of these stories. As I say, if you've got any of these, if you're in love with a Thai bar girl and you've got an interesting story, please let me know, and I will make a video about it. But that's it for today, guys. If you like this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up. It helps. And that's it for now, basically. So, as I say, just one last time, I'm going to reiterate on this point. If you are planning to go to Thailand, you've never been there before, don't worry. Nothing's going to happen to you. It's very safe. I wouldn't keep going back myself if it was dangerous. Everything that happens to guys, they bring it on themselves. Just keep your sensible head on when you go there and enjoy it. So that's it for today, guys. As I say, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next video.